are darker than blue. Don't let us hang around this town and let what others say come true. We're just good for nothing. They all figure a boyish grown-up shiftless jigger.
Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday, November 14th at 5 p.m. So that must mean I am Jackie Lukeman, and this is Darker Than Blue on WPFW 89.3 FM in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. And for everybody watching on Black Liberation Media on YouTube, on Lukeman Nation on YouTube, Black Liberation Media, or Lukeman Nation on Facebook, and Lukeman Nation on Instagram. Peace, everybody. What's going on? And all of you also watching on Lukeman Nation on Patreon. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, my friends, there is so much going on in the world. There's a lot that I could just catch up on because there was so much going on last week. And last week we did not have Darker Than Blue because I got caught up in the flight delays from the shutdown. That's not even important. I'm here. I'm fine. We're all here. It's good because what is happening in the Caribbean right now supersedes everything as far as I'm concerned, because I think we are witnessing how close we really always have been to World War III. And what we're going to talk about today, I think, is not one of the only reasons, but I really believe it's the only reason that we have not actually been in the middle of World War III so far. And that's because of the restraint that other nations have shown in the face of endless U.S. aggression toward them that did not just start with this particular threat that has been playing out in the Caribbean between the U.S. and Venezuela. That's what we're going to talk about today here on Darker Than Blue, because this is a critical time for U.S. Caribbean relations, U.S. Americas relations. We talked a week before last about the Americas not just being the United States of America, but the Americas. We are just a small part of the Americas, but this government of this country has wielded outsized, not just influence, but power, militarism, and imperialist injustice. And that's really what we are talking about today. And I'm so glad that I am joined today by comrade and friend Carlos Sirra of the Black Alliance for Peace Field Operations and Membership Team. Carlos, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this very, very critical topic today.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for having me. And I think you're correctly right about how close we are to what is the brink. What we're seeing is one of the largest escalations of U.S. military in the hemisphere in a very long time. Upwards of 15,000 U.S. troops deployed on the largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. Since September, the U.S. in the region has killed upwards of 75 people, many of those people fishermen in boats under the guise calling it counter narcotics. But really, what we know is it is about regime change and access and theft of Venezuela's oil reserves, some of the largest in the world.
I mean, you gave the highlights right there. And I'm so glad you started off with the highlights, because we are going to go down the list of every single one of those things, because I'm disturbed. But I think all of us are probably slightly disturbed in this particular moment in time. And I feel like I have to start these conversations all the time, Carlos, because you know me, you know how I am. I'm just gonna tell you what tis. We've not, but in my role here as a public affairs commentator on WPFW, I gotta dial it down a little bit. So I recognize that there are people listening who don't understand this conflict. They don't understand why Trump is going after Venezuela. And there are also people who I won't say don't care. What I will say is they believe what is being said about Venezuela, not necessarily because they're Trump supporters, but because they're Americans, right? And we are indoctrinated to believe that President Nicolas Maduro is a dictator, that Hugo Chavez before him was a dictator, that President Diaz Canel of Cuba is a dictator, that President Xi Jinping in China, dictator, Vladimir Putin, dictator. Anybody, any leader of a country that does not have a capitalist system as a part of its economic and political foundation. The United States indoctrinates Americans to believe that those countries are not free, that the leaders of those countries are dictators, evil socialist communist dictators, and that the people in those countries are trapped under the fascist and authoritarian rule, iron grip of communist rule of these dictators. But I am not this time going to offer my personal perspective because I've actually been to Venezuela, right? So I could say a lot about those things not being true, and I have, but then that would just defeat the purpose of us having you here. So, Carlos, for people who believe that Trump and Hegseth are actually taking out narco traffickers who are trying to bring fentanyl to the United States to addict all of these hardworking Americans. What do you say to that claim in particular?
Well, I begin by saying, and I think all of my comrades in the Black Alliance for Peace would agree with me, that the U.S. has zero moral authority. Zero. I think there are a few things to tease out. You are correct in the levels of indoctrination and propaganda that the U.S. routinely uses when they want to move a particular policy of violence. In this case, they are using drug dealers. In other cases, they have used or manufactured, I should say, invented WMD. They have invented the guise of the gang in Haiti. All of this is to serve U.S. interests in the region, in the hemisphere, which dates back to the Monroe Doctrine of allowing no other sovereign nation to build anything in the United States. So basically seeing the US seeing the whole hemisphere as its backyard. Um, they have no moral authority because the US backs Israel, which is committing genocide in Palestine right now. They back the coup in Bolivia. They back the death squads in Colombia. They're backing the aggression and continued occupation of Haiti. And I don't think it's whether like we like Venezuela's government. That isn't up to Americans to decide
Mm.
who Venezuela's future is. That is up to the Venezuelans. And the question we should be asking is, do the Venezuelan people get sovereignty or do they get regime change? Do they get self-determination or do they get occupation? And I think those are the only questions that matter. And I think to that end, that is why the Black Alliance for Peace, in conjunction with many other organizations throughout the hemisphere are calling for a week of action to say no to this war, and to say yes to regional cooperation among peoples to advance the hemisphere as a genuine and abiding zone of peace, which is free from U.S. militarization and U.S. Aggression.
Carlos, people are going to hear that and say, "Oh, that's wonderful. That's very nice. That's what you think." But those people are trafficking drugs. We saw the pictures because, even though the Trump administration and the Department of War, because and let me just give y'all a little bit of a side. Stop tripping out about the fact that they renamed the Department of Defense Department of War, because that was the original name. It really was. I'm not making this up. I know some people listen to me sometimes and they're like, she is making this stuff up. It's not that bad. This country has never been no, I'm seriously not. I don't make anything up. What I tell you is the truth, and I'm not kidding. The original name of the Department of Defense was the Department of War, and it was created to genocide the indigenous people. That's where it came from. So yeah, so they're just being honest about their original purpose. That's all they're doing, and we can say a whole lot about Donald Trump and this current regime, but we can't say that they're lying about what they're doing, can we, Carlos? They're pretty honest about what it is they intend to do here. But for people who are saying, this country has a right to defend itself, because we seem to love that phrase. When it comes to mass murderers, that the mass murderers have a right to defend themselves. People are saying, but they're bringing drugs. They're trafficking drugs into this country. Has there ever been any evidence presented that that claim is true? But then here's I don't like to call it devil's advocacy, but here's a little advocacy for the people who still may not believe it. Even if there was evidence, should this be the way this government handles such a situation, Carlos?
Yeah. So this is propaganda. It's naked propaganda. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime, their own reports show Venezuela is not a major trafficking hub. The US DEA's own data says the same thing. They're using the same playbook that I think they used in Colombia in the 80s and the 90s, war on drugs. And much of the later pretext of Afghanistan was to counter narcotics of coming into purportedly coming into the U.S. And every single time, it's a lie to cover for regime change and resource theft. Um, um, and listen to like what they're saying about the people who are in fishing boats. The Department of War is comparing them to Al Qaeda. That's not security analysis. That's racist justification for mass murder. It's racist justification for extrajudicial murder. So, I think if we follow this logic, and why it is so dangerous, this logic, because if drug dealers can be and should be summarily killed, that has implications for people living in the purported United States. And so that's one of the things that I would say to Americans. I could. I'll stop there.
because if we were having this conversation outside of a public, oh, we have a whole lot more to say, and we can't say it on the air. And I want to make sure that people understand that this is not a new struggle. The defense of Venezuela from the United States. This is not a special Trump project. This is not something that only he has cooked up in his fevered white supremacist thieving brain, because this entire regime is a Donald Trump money grab. That's what it is. It's his ego project. This man doesn't care about policy or how it affects people. He's not interested in doing anything good for anybody. He's literally using his power as president once again to go after the people who he has an axe to grind against from the last election that he actually did lose, but he's also using it to just rip off as much money as he possibly can, while he knows that the courts are going to take a while to get around to ruling on some of the things that he's doing. And in the meantime, he's just living out every aggrieved white man fantasy of just killing as many brown people for as many reasons, and denying their rights and expelling them and imprisoning them as much as he can. This isn't about policy for Donald Trump, but it is about imperialist hegemony for every administration before Trump and up to including him, including Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris. So, Carlos, why should we not? What would help people to be clear that this is not just some random thing that Trump decided to do? What was the Biden administration doing in regard to Venezuela before now?
So a few things. I think we have to also kind of contextualize the broader region that surrounds Venezuela as well. We have Haiti, we have Puerto Rico, we have Ecuador and Colombia. And US policy, no matter who the president has been to destabilize these countries, to gain more traction in the Americas, and also to do regime change in Bolivia. Biden provided military support to Ecuador's right-wing government. He and his vice president certainly went around the Caribbean, garnering support to kind of destabilize Haiti. And why all of this is important, because of the seaways, the passages, the staging grounds that they're using. Puerto Rico in particular, who is vying for its own sovereignty. Haiti, Haitian people who are vying for their own sovereignty in the region, have to kind of come up against the US military, seeing them as kind of strategic posts to thwart Venezuela, in a larger effort, I think, to thwart China from making inroads in the Americas. Biden threatened to use Guantanamo for deportees. This is the Pentagon's full spectrum dominance, and that has been bipartisan. Southcom has 76 bases throughout the hemisphere. Those have been built over decades by both parties. Crippling sanctions, and we have to recognize and remember that sanctions are war. Upwards of 7 million Venezuelans had to flee their country because of those sanctions. Crippling sanctions on Cuba, crippling sanctions on Nicaragua. These are a product of both parties. And I think what we're seeing now is the US kind of doing what it always does, which was reverting to brazen colonialist expansion, full military control of the hemisphere, imperialism, aggressive economic coercion, and using divide and rule tactics through compradors and puppet governments, all wrapped in, I think, vulgar white supremacist nationalism.
And it's that vulgar white supremacist nationalism that we see from these compradors. Understand, we're not just talking about the US government under every administration and what they want to take from Venezuela. We're going to get there in a minute, Carlos. But we see the agents in Venezuela, because, we anti-imperialist organizers talk all the time about the comprador class, certainly here among our people, but also in other countries, even countries that are the sites of imperialist aggression, because those members of the comprador class in those countries are there to assist with the US's efforts in regime change and in carrying out these coups against, yes, democratically elected leaders in those countries. But the difference is those leaders, like Maduro, rely on socialism to redistribute the resources that the country makes from their natural resources, oil and gas and other things that are sold on the open market, and they redistribute those profits to meet the needs of the people. So that money doesn't go to the CEO of the oil company in Venezuela. PDVSA is a state owned oil company. So the state earns those profits from the sale of oil from Venezuela, and that money goes to build housing for people, to provide free health care to all of the people in Venezuela, and to meet the people's needs, to fund education for everyone in Venezuela. But there are some people in Venezuela who don't want that. And that's where the white supremacist, white nationalist comprador narrative or assistance comes in. Because, Carlos, in the last administration, that representative was this guy named Juan Guaido. This time, I was surprised by how this person emerged, because, man, you want to talk about Western systems showing their whole posterior. The Nobel Peace Prize it's illegitimate now, and why is that, Carlos?
Uh, yeah, what's her name? Carmen Machado.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I mean, they have a word for these people. What do they call gusanos, little worms?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Um, and rightly so. Like, um, yeah, I don't know the history of that organization, the Nobel Prize, but I know luminaries have got it, and I found it curious in this moment of all times that this person gets this to make this very large platform, to make a very large claim to build war and support for the United States against the people of Venezuela. But I found it also curious that this is the same person, the same figure who wrote Bibi Netanyahu praising him. So Zionists of a feather flock together. Um, you know, it's egregious, and I think what is the counter to that are the millions upon millions. I'm reading somewhere like upwards of 10 million people have joined local militias to defend the Bolivarian revolution. So they can put boots on the ground if they want to. And America has no stomach for boots on the ground, which I think, which may be part of the reason why that large aircraft carrier is there. But that connection, the white supremacists of the world are coordinating in ways that they always have. It is more naked now. I think more people are hip to the game, and I think that's better for all of us. And I think through processes, formations like the U.S. Out of the Americas Network, that formations like the Black Alliance for Peace, formations like Diaspora Palante, all of these organizations that are communicating throughout the Americas, in Venezuela, in Cuba, in Trinidad and Tobago, are attempting to cooperate with the same level of coordination to combat these people. Because if left to them, we are all under their thumb. And they're moving us towards more and more kind of naked slave labor, which is where they want us. They had us there one time, and this is where they would love to see us again.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that about the coordination of anti-imperialists, of people fighting for their own sovereignty in their own lands that is happening throughout the Caribbean, because that is what we're going to be focusing on next week. We, meaning the members of the Black Alliance for Peace, and all of these other organizations that are committed to anti-imperialist struggle. So I want to read just a little bit of the latest statement from the Black Alliance for Peace about this call. And it is a call for mass struggle against US-led war on Venezuela and the Caribbean. We're going to pick up on that in a little bit. But this statement says, realizing a zone of peace in our Americas requires defending Venezuela's popular sovereignty. The statement was issued today, and it reads in part, the U.S. empire, unable to accept the sovereignty, progress, and moral example of the Bolivarian Revolution, is escalating its aggressive attacks against Venezuela. This is by no means an isolated struggle. What started as aggression against Venezuela and the Bolivarian Revolution has already claimed several dozen lives of working class people in the Caribbean and Pacific, extended to threats against Colombia and its president, been linked to the militarization of Ecuador and Panama, and remilitarized Puerto Rico. This is yet another front in the struggle against U.S. imperialism, and it is interlocked with our movements for liberation in Haiti, Palestine, throughout our Americas, across the global South, and within the borders of the United States. It is the wider ongoing pattern of regional militarization and imperialist control that fundamentally violates the principles of a zone of peace, as the U.S. Southern Command, SOUTHCOM, has systematically transformed the Caribbean into a staging ground for its hegemonic projects. Puerto Rico, a colonial territory, is consistently used as a strategic site for the development and launch of military exercises, normalizing its status as a forward operating base, while nations like Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago are treated as subordinate puppet states that risk their own sovereignty to facilitate U.S. objectives. Simultaneously, Haiti has been cast as a laboratory for imperialist policy, where an accelerated militarization and occupation over the last 4 years has provided a blueprint for intervention. The racist and cynical designation of Haitian paramilitary armed groups as terrorists to be eradicated by U.S.-led occupation has done nothing to relieve the impoverished, marginalized Haitians from the violence of these gangs, because they are a direct consequence of imperialism. And yet, the excuse and label of terrorism has now been directly exported to the case of Venezuela, which is why we always focus on all of the imperialism everywhere else in the world, because it is all connected. There, the statement continues, the U.S. Department of War cynically compares Caribbean people in fishing boats to Al-Qaeda, a transparent tactic to manufacture a pretext for full military invasion and attack. And the end of the statement reads, the U.S. empire seeks to destroy the Bolivarian Revolution precisely because it shows we can fight for people's-centered human rights and for a true, just, militant peace. In unwavering solidarity with the Venezuelan people, we therefore commit to continuing this fight, organizing in solidarity with their masses and popular movements across the Americas to defend sovereignty, dignity, and the right to forge a different future. You can read this full statement at blackallianceforpeace.com. That's BLACK ALLIANCEFORPEACE.com /BAP statements /defend Venezuela Caribbean. And we are at 30 minutes past the hour, dear friends. You know what that means. That means it's time for a station break. So, engineer extraordinaire, what do we have on tap for the people today?
WPFW presents Amplify Sudan, Wednesday, November 19th. A day of emancipatory, informational, and inspirational programming centering Sudanese sovereignty and the ongoing threat to peace and security for her people. From 5 a.m. until midnight, there will be discussions with activists, journalists, and the people most impacted by what's happening in Sudan, in addition to the presentation of music and poetry centering Sudan. That's Amplify Sudan, Wednesday, November 19th, 5 a.m. until midnight on WPFW. Building a better world, one broadcast at a time.
Thank you so much. And I sincerely hope you all join in, tune in, listen in to our special programming on Sudan that the announcement just gave. It is critically important because guess what? That is also connected to all of this. But Carlos, the BAP statement and the previous one before it, because there was a previous statement issued on October 23rd, when some of the first attacks against Caribbean fisherfolk, let's be clear, these are fishing boats. These are not big. Listen, y'all watch too much television if you really believe that major narco traffickers are transporting all of their drugs in teeny tiny little fishing boats that everybody can see in the middle of the day, early in the morning. Who does that? Narco traffickers don't do that. Stop watching HBO series on narco trafficking. That's not what they do. So the boats that are being bombed by the US military, and nobody is opposing these orders, by the way. I think I need to make that clear, because as much as we want to blame Trump, the person himself, for all of these awful things happening, I keep saying, who is standing up to him and saying, we are not going to kill these people because we cannot prove that they've done anything wrong. And even if we could, they are in their own waters. We have no jurisdiction to try anyone for any crime that we think they committed against us while they're still in their own waters. And we certainly don't have the right to just summarily kill people who we say are committing a crime against us with no evidence. And even if we did have evidence, we still don't have the right as a government, as a military, as any kind of entity that is not connected with that country for doing anything about any person in any other country allegedly committing a crime or potentially committing a crime against the United States. No jurisdiction, no right, none whatsoever. The people who are being murdered, the way this is being reported in the United States, and I'm sure in the rest of the West, that the US is bombing boats. No, let's call it what it is. The US is murdering people. Those boats are not empty. Those boats are not filled with empty packages. Those boats are not filled with inanimate objects. Those boats are filled with human beings going about their business, feeding their families. And the United States is murdering those people. And there is not anyone in the Department of Defense who is standing up and saying, this is wrong. We will not comply. So, Carlos, this is an existential threat for Venezuela, of course, now with the largest aircraft carrier. in between Venezuela and the rest of the Caribbean. But it's not just Venezuela that would be impacted by any U.S. strike, and it's not just Venezuela being impacted by these murders, because it's not just Venezuelans. What other countries are immediately impacted by what the U.S. is doing and planning to do?
Sure. The immediate countries that are impacted are the country that Venezuela shares a border with. We have, and who are in the immediate vicinity. As we already see, of those already kind of extrajudicially judicially killed by the United States, among those are fishermen from many of these areas, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago. It shares a border with Colombia as well. Um, and, you know, the US has been trying to destabilize um, both Colombia and Venezuela for a very long time. And so all of those people are in immediate danger of being killed, because we know that there are reactionary forces also in those countries that the United States has utilized uh, prior to this moment. And the strategy, it would seem, which has been the strategy in the past, to use those persons to create vacuums, create war, they create chaos. And in that chaos is where the United States finds its best and perhaps most perfect opportunity to theft and loot and to install more puppet governments to embolden those compradors, which affects the working people who are working to build nations like Venezuela to defend their revolution, but also for people in the Anglophone Caribbean as well who are working to fight reactionary governments in their area. That sets those countries back. And as a member, as a, I think we have to think about all of those people. We're the Black Alliance for Peace, the Black diaspora who lives in all of those countries. Venezuela has one of the largest, populations of Africans living in South America as
Oh,
well.
say that again. Say it again, because people act like we don't live anywhere but here.
Africans and Black people are all over there. It's like 1492 happened. Like they brought the slaves to everywhere in the Americas. And those people are fighting for self-determination with us, parallel to us. And Black Alliance for Peace exists so that we can coordinate with those folks so that we can liberate all of us. Haiti, the first Black republic, under occupation right now. Venezuela has massive Afro-Venezuelan communities. And I'm thinking about the earlier question that you brought, like, what result? The theft has real kind of material consequences, even for people in the United States. Venezuela produced a tremendous amount of oil and was generous with those oil.
Yes.
So when we think about winter and affordability here in the United States for people, the eggs are high, the heating is high, the government has just been shut down. Venezuela had a program, a very successful program that was extending low cost, quite nearly free heating oil for people in the United States. And they did that throughout the Americas. They extended that to Haiti at very low cost as well. And so those are real material consequences of aggression and war in Venezuela. And with the theft of Citgo, it just kind of puts all that in relief. United States, in collaboration with the comprador Gusano Juan Guaido, helped that theft. The UK holds Venezuela's gold as we speak right now.
That's right.
Sanctions are just straight up thievery. I mean, we say sanctions. It's just like, I'm taking your stuff, you're not getting it back. And
right. And if you die, then you just die, because the last report we saw from several years ago, and I'm sure this number has skyrocketed since then, this was, I think, more than 5 years ago when it was reported that sanctions at that time, this is more than 5 years ago, sanctions against Venezuela were projected to have caused the deaths of at least 40,000 people in Venezuela. This was more than 5 years ago. That's only gotten worse. And I'm glad you mentioned that Venezuelan oil program, because I actually remember those commercials. If you all are of a certain age, you listeners and viewers, you remember those commercials that had Joe Kennedy. I think it was Joe Kennedy, one of the Kennedy cousins, nephews, because there's 87,000 of them. But one of the Kennedys was in this commercial, going around to a lot of rural, isolated areas, in the poor areas, poor white areas, giving people who relied on oil to heat their homes, giving them free oil from Venezuela. The commercial literally said that. And the commercial ended with, "We thank the government of Venezuela for," and this actually happened. And then all of a sudden that program disappeared. And I bet you folks who remember their families being a part or benefiting from this program, wondering what happened. That's what happened. US sanctions happened. US imperialism happened. The United States wanting to control all of Venezuela's oil and whatever resources and the human resources that they would have control over, regardless of how you suffer, because they want more. Do you see your role and the impact that these policies that you probably don't pay a lot of attention to because it's foreign policy, you believe it's complex, it's too complicated. And anyway, those people over there, they're living in a dictatorship, so the US is bringing freedom. Well, the freedom that you think the US is bringing those people is actually authoritarianism and imperialist control. And a byproduct of that is your deepening poverty. So do you see why all of this is connected to, quite literally, how comfortable you are in your own home? If you cannot afford heating oil, if you're afraid of how much it's going to cost, I want you to remember this conversation, because it doesn't have to be this way at all. And these countries that these imperialist warmongers in this government keep telling you are communists and they hate America and they're evil and they're anti-democratic, these people recognize that we are being ripped off by our own government, and they actually want to help us. They have actually always wanted to help us and have friendly relations with us, but imperialism says no, that can't happen. And you mentioned, Carlos, the comprador governments in other countries. And I think the particular prime minister in Trinidad and Tobago is really, I think, maybe I don't know if it's an extreme case, but I think she is a case that we need to highlight, because I think it maybe comes from a sector that people wouldn't expect. Well, like, we wouldn't expect a Caribbean nation to support what's being done in their waters to their people, but she kind of is.
Yeah, that's Kamala,
Yes.
Kamla.
Yes.
Justice, sorry.
Kamla. Yes, her name is she's Prime Minister Kamla, Kamla Persad Bisesar. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly. And you know what? She's one of those people where if I'm not, I don't care. But okay, let's.
Um, yeah. I mean, she's a particularly egregious case right now because, after the death, and our comrade in Black Alliance for Peace, Tamanisha John, drew attention to this for me. Um, after they kill these people, like the kind of the posture towards the United States is, not like standing up to kind of defend their people against, like, no, you can't kill our people, but like, no, when are you gonna? Can you like forewarn us on when you're gonna? Can you tell us when you're gonna strike next? Like, can we get the advance notice of when you're gonna like kill more of us?
Can you give us a map and a list and a timeline so we
so we
can
can
watch?
line them up for you. We'll pay our tribute for the U.S. Yeah, but I mean, she's very much a kind of right wing figure in that manner. And so I think, as folks in the Black Alliance for Peace know, like we have to kind of always make a distinction between who are for the people and who are against the people, who is the enemy. And I think the enemy is, of course, the great enemy, the entity known as the United States, but also this kind of long line of its like vassal states and proxies, but also the compradors. And Kamala has, a parallel figure in her namesake, Kamala, in this country. They are both of a kind of person who we must deem as the enemy, and I think fight with everything with the same intensity that we fight the United States on these matters of aggression and war.
Yeah, and this is the part of every conversation about struggle that I actually love. It's the fight part. Because this is where the people are. We do have to analyze all of the different aspects that create and coalesce to bring us to these moments. This again, dear listeners, and those of you who are viewing, again, this is not something that emerged out of the fevered brain of Donald Trump. This is a part of the U.S. project extending the Monroe Doctrine into the 22nd century. This is not going to stop unless the people stop it. And the people in the global South and in other targeted by imperialism countries, they understand that they must fight this enemy that is gobbling up their countries and their rights and their resources and their very lives. They're really, and I think now, Carlos, they're not waiting for us to join in. They've identified those of us in the imperial core who are ready for this fight. And that's why we're engaged in this global effort to stand with and defend Venezuela. So let's talk about that fight. What does this look like for us inside the imperial core to engage in this struggle for not just Venezuelan sovereignty and self-determination, but the sovereignty and self-determination of all the people in the Caribbean region and beyond?
Certainly. I think we have to act, and I think the first order of things is naming a thing as such, which we are doing right now. I think shows like yours and the ecosystems like this that are calling attention to this, and also grateful for the call to do the week of action. And that's taking many forms. The week of action is robust. All of the BAP structures are mobilizing. All of our citywide alliances. The first one of those starts tomorrow. There is in Philadelphia a rally in front of the city hall at 2 p.m. So get there to talk about this very issue, to draw attention. We have to educate our people. BAP organizes, it also educates to defeat this war against African peoples, both in the domestic United States and throughout the region and abroad. And I think lifting up that zone of peace as an ideological concept on the one hand, but also as something material to be gained for and by the people, which has at its very core mutual respect and sovereignty for the peoples of this hemisphere, which I think by extension, we want that for all peoples in the world. And so that looks like, educating people. It looks like agitation. It looks like person by person, really building kind of momentum to stop this war. you know, we're on the brink of war right now, and there's hardly a peep.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is like not very far from us. And I don't think people understand like this can touch you. This will touch you.
Hmm.
And it is in your best interest to stop it before it begins. Because we know that war takes tremendous amounts of resources from the people and these kind of wars of aggression by these people. But I think we also have to say that if there is a war, that we have to fight on the side of the people. And we have to stand in solidarity with people against any kind of imperialism wherever we meet it.
Absolutely. And that brings us right back to my theory that we started this conversation with, that the only reason we are not in the middle of World War III right now is because of the restraint of other countries, and the quite honestly, the love of humanity that other countries show toward other people. In it be Listen, let me make this as explicit as I possibly can without actually being as explicit as I can be. Venezuelans love Americans more
Mm.
than Americans give a crap about Venezuelans. And you can replace the word Venezuelan with anybody in any other country that this government says is an enemy of the United States. That is absolutely true of every country that exists, I believe, that has adopted for itself people centered human rights anywhere in their governance structure, and particularly countries that have adopted socialist or communist ideologies, because the foundation of socialism is justice, fairness, and equality for all people. That is a foundational principle in the system of socialism, of the ideology of socialism. What's the ideology of Americanism? Rugged individualism. You can make it on your own, and everybody else in the world knows that's garbage, because humans need each other. We need each other to survive. We need each other. We're social creatures. None of us succeed without others. None of us who have anything, none of us have the thing that we have, whatever it is, from our own anything. There's always someone else whose footsteps we are walking in, whose shoulders we are standing on, who has provided us a hand up or a handout. That's not a bad thing, because sometimes we all need help. This is a basic human principle that other people in other governments, not in every country, but in many countries around the world, understand. And it is that basic love of humanity that exists in other countries that has kept the world from World War III, while the United States government and its allies in the European Union and their military armed gang of thugs, NATO, is determined to destroy for their profit, not even for the benefit of you or me. And even if it was for the benefit of you or me, I wouldn't want to benefit any kind of way for other people's suffering, from other people's suffering. So, this is the existential human existence level struggle that we engage in as anti imperialists. So, we are engaged in this week of action that came from Venezuela, from Venezuelan civil society, for the week of November 15th through the 23rd. An urgent call for a week of coordinated protests. No war on Venezuela, no troops on their streets, calling all anti war peace and justice, union, and solidarity. And I am going to add progressive faith community members, an emergency network calling for all local actions, large and small. That is why we are engaged in this struggle, because it is the struggle for humanity itself. Is it not, Carlos? Am I being too hyperbolic? Am I preaching too much? Is this not what this struggle is? The struggle for humanity.
Certainly. Yeah, you're exactly right. This isn't about governments or personalities. It's it's really about people's right to determine their own futures. I think it's about building a true zone of peace from the grassroots up. It's about recognizing that our liberation here in the United States is bound to the liberation of all oppressed people fighting empire. And I think as Malcolm taught us, we have a common oppressor. That means we also need common struggle.
Mm.
And that is our work.
Indeed, it is. How do listeners and viewers get involved in this week of action, in this upcoming week, Carlos?
Yes, you can check out our events page on the blackallianceforpeace.com. Just Google events, blackallianceforpeace.com, and those events are being listed there. There are events, let me pull up my little list here, in many cities that you can kind of plug into. As I said before, tomorrow in Philly, they'll also, and then there's a thrust of action of happenings on the 19th. It's a coordinated day of action. And so there's a Mid-Atlantic rally on the 19th at 12 p.m. at Barracks Row in Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. Here in Los Angeles is where I'm calling from. We'll be having a teach-in at Dabu Sound on November 19th. That too will be on the page. Chicago, BAP Chicago and the Anti-War Committee of Chicago will be having a no war on Venezuela on the 19th as well. The New York City, New Jersey will have a rally and subway teach-in. And all of these will be able to be found on that page. One more for tomorrow, if you're in Nashville as well, there's a War on Venezuela event at Pruitt Branch Library. And that is at 1 p.m., as well as teach-ins happening on the 19th in Atlanta, and screenings and more screenings and things of that nature. So tap in with that site and you can get linked to all of those events in your particular city.
Absolutely. That site is blackallianceforpeace.com. Carlos Sirra, thank you so much for joining me. You all, thank you for listening and watching. This has been Darker Than Blue. I am Jackie Lukman. And if things go as planned, I'll see you again next week. Stay tuned for News Views with Garland Nixon. Until next time, a luta continua. The struggle continues, but I promise you, if we fight together, Victoria Acerta, victory is certain. Peace, everybody.
No compromise, no retreat.
Yes, sir. All right. Woo, Lord. These motherfuckers.
They fucking lost it. It's so wild. It's so wild.
Like, how the fuck you gonna put the whole big ass aircraft carrier in the thing? And you think people just gonna be like, oh, it's so.
Oh, they named the operation today. I forgot to mention that. What do they call it? It's they love a name for operation. Spear hit something spear.
Yes. And it's like so you just go park the and I'm not sure if the US aircraft carrier is the world's biggest aircraft carrier, because I think that China is like, oh yeah, nigga. Sorry.
I know they were panicking when that 60 Minutes. Did you watch that 60 Minutes where they talked about China's Navy?
Yeah. Look, I watched that Chinese the China Victory Day. Appreciate it. Go ahead, drop a bomb. Go
Yeah.
ahead, see what happens. And even listen, we're laughing, we're joking. It's
Hmm.
but look, y'all, none of us want anybody. None of us want this government to actually fuck around and find out what would happen when the anti-imperialist, or at least the non-aligned powers, get together and decide, you know what, enough of this shit. That
Yeah.
we the
Yeah.
if
The
we've been
grace that's
watching.
been given, the grace that's been given, Jackie, like Iran, like time and time again, the levels, like people, and it demonstrates that like people really don't want to be at war.
No,
They're trying to fight it at all costs. They made tremendous gains in their. They want to protect those. They want to live. Their people to kind of live these prosperous, like like lives fitting for humans,
I mean,
versus like
other countries
the kind
are.
of degradation they wanted to like assign us to.
Yeah, I mean, people in other countries, and I think this is generally true of most people working, particularly working class and poor people. Because look, we understand that the class element it can be tricky, because some folks living in these countries, understanding what war with the U.S. would mean, they're still like, well, if on the other side of it I get richer, I'm cool. Because see, they're gonna leave. They're
Yeah, they're
gonna
gonna
leave
leave. They'll
when
be
the
in
bombs
Miami.
start.
They'll be in Miami.
When the troops start marching down the streets, when the bombs start, when the planes start, and they drop in they will already be at their cousin's house in Miami somewhere. You're right, in Miami,
Hmm.
because that's where that is
That's where they all
Gusano.
go.
That is good. That is the Gusano capital of the United States. So the middle class that are all about expanding their capitalist profit, that they are constrained, particularly in countries like Venezuela and Cuba, and China. It's not like what's it, Vietnam, Tanzania, to some degree.
Mm.
Understanding that there's no such thing as a purely socialist and communist country in the world. It has never existed, right?
Hmm.
These
Hmm.
are ideologies.
Hmm.
Understand, socialism and communism, and they are things that a society continually moves toward, continually, I can't say perfects, because I don't know that there is ever such a thing as a perfection of socialism, a perfection of communism, or even a perfection of democracy, right? Because tensions always exist in society because of class interests, because
Hmm.
of other kinds of things that, right. So these ideologies, when they are applied to whole societies and exercised and carried out by governments, are taking elements of these ideologies, applying them to their unique historical and material conditions, and the current conditions and the needs of their people, and takes everything into consideration, like whether the country is largely agrarian or not, or if it's more industrial, whether the
Hmm.
country is whether the topography is largely mountainous, or if it's largely flatland or wetland, or because that speaks to resources, where the resources need to be distributed, how they need to be distributed, what needs to be. You understand? And I'm doing a little bit of foundational understanding of the development of political ideologies or theories in society. We are given a black and white, good versus evil, good versus bad analysis of the United States and its claim of democracy and its accepted economic system, which is capitalism, compared to everybody else. And if everybody else includes governments that apply economic redistributional policies, and the redistribution is targeted to the working class and the poor, then the United States says they're communists.
Mm-hmm.
In the
Mm-hmm.
United States, communism means evil, and I'm going to tell you why. And I think I talked about this a little bit. Well, no, actually, I talked about it a whole lot 2 shows ago, where I explained through my own research, through my own kind of writing and learning this, that the reason people in this country believe that capitalism is good is because white Christians have basically said that God approves capitalism, although that's not in the actual book. And we don't read our book, and people hate Christianity. Well, I completely understand, but I'm trying to tell you it's not in the book. The exact opposite is actually in the book. If you only read Acts 2 and 3, the book of Acts, chapters 2 and 3, if you don't read anything else in the whole damn Bible, and you're a socialist or a communist, trust me when read Acts 2 and 3. And then you'll understand why I say what I say. Capitalism, that there is no embrace of capitalism in the Bible. The foundational principles of socialism and communism, however, are because communalism is the way people have lived for millennia. It's not unusual. It's just that when they started this shit, that's not what they did. See, the indigenous, when they were here, they were probably like, if we can be friends, sure, we'll share some things. But the settlers who came here didn't ask, right? They didn't ask, hey, can you help us? Because we don't know how to grow shit. We are starving. The indigenous would have, most would have.
I ain't gotta say, but I should have let him should have let him wither.
But I'm just like, you know what?
let him fail.
I'm kind of tell you, look. They should have either when them ships came and they saw them coming. They're like, don't let them motherfuckers land. Tell them to swim on back to that boat. They stink. There's something wrong. You shouldn't be able to smell them from this far away. Good God, get back on that boat and throw some soap at them. Or that one winter where they were close to eating each other, they should have let them do it. Just, but okay, here we are. But I'm trying to explain in my weird and trauma informed humor based way that the only reason you are told to hate these particular other countries, and you are told that socialism is evil and communism is evil, and it's always godless communism, as if socialists and communists don't have spiritual beliefs. Yes, they do. You ain't seen no spirituality till you would been to Cuba. And you took the tour of the fort where Hugo Chavez and his forces tried to overthrow the right-wing US-backed government the first time with military might. And the first place they take you on that tour of that fort where Chavez's body is buried is the chapel. And that's where Chavez went and read the Bible to get inspiration and strength before he went right outside to them cannons and put that cannonball in that thing and like, blow the shit out of that palace and get that man out of there. And Chavez ends up in jail after that failed coup, but then he was released, and history is what it is. The Bolivarian Revolution prevailed. So we are indoctrinated to hate something we don't understand. And it is so effective because we've also been indoctrinated into anti-intellectualism, to literally not read, to literally not to not have a healthy dose of skepticism, or at least to say, well, thank you for giving me that information, but let me go check it out myself. Let me see what else. We're indoctrinated not to do that, not to use or develop critical thinking skills. We're told what to think. And that's in the secular, non spiritual aspect of society, right? That's politics, entertainment, education. But we get it confirmed in church, y'all. We get that ideology confirmed in church, and most of us who have lived some type of faith life, we've been in somebody's church, mosque, synagogue, what a prayer meeting, whatever, and got the idea that communism and socialism are ungodly, because we've been indoctrinated to believe that just like American exceptionalism, just like this divine blessing of this particular country, capitalism is also divinely blessed by God. I know people don't like to talk about religion, but we cannot fix this problem unless we deal with how religion has fucked us up in these ways. And in a lot of ways, only a person inside the faith can actually do it. Because y'all just be saying shit and it be wrong. And it's not the actual thing. You just hate Christianity. And I get it. That's fine. But we have to get to the heart of how we get these weird understandings, to the point where when you do go to places like Venezuela and Cuba, you're confused because you see all these churches and mosques and synagogues all over the place. You go to people's houses and they got Christian crosses, the crucifix, and they've got all of this Christian iconography all over the place, but they've also got their traditional indigenous African spirituality on full display, and none of it is in conflict with their socialist communist project, and none of it is in conflict with their struggle against imperialism. Why? Because anti-imperialism is actually at the root of all of the faith traditions. It really is. And unless you read the books, you don't know that's true. So we don't read, so we don't know it's true.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think one of the things also is, like you're talking about earlier, it has to like create this kind of good versus evil. But I think within that, like, capitalists also just won't leave you alone. Like, they have to kind of extract more and more and more, because like, if it's such a threat, if all of these things are such a threat, and I think many people have said this, like, well, like, let them go. Leave them alone. See how those communists, that ain't like, see how they do.
Right.
Yeah, but obviously that's not the case, because they understand the power of it. They understand it is antithetical to everything that capitalism is, and they know that they are, one, disempowered from it, and will cease to exist in a communist world.
Yeah, and I see you guys over here in the chat, you comrades. Thanks so much. Happy birthday, Leah Boggs. Happy birthday. I had to give you a cussing session on my birthday, or on your birthday rather. I wasn't gonna not let you have a cussing session on on your birthday. Appreciate you very much. So Carlos, what do you say? And then we're gonna wrap up. But I am very curious, because we've been having this struggle over this idea of Afro-pessimism, and those people over there ain't never helped us. Those people over there, they ain't never done nothing for us. But we just established once again the fact that we are kind of everywhere. There's a reason there is an African diaspora. There's a reason we're all connected. We're all throughout the Americas. I think Brazil has the largest Afro-descended population outside of Africa. Colombia, I think, is second. Venezuela is third, I think. I think that's how it goes. But what do you say to, and with it, this is something we talked about during, as we were focusing on Palestine. It's something we have had to talk about focusing on Haiti. This is a constant kind of thing because this idea has taken root also among us. The idea that people in other countries, we have no connection with them, and we shouldn't care about what this government does to them because they ain't never cared about us. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think about it in two ways. One, the historical record
Mm,
uh,
mm,
offers us, like, I think, a bevy of examples around cooperation. I'm thinking about particularly Cuba and Angola. Um, yeah, and just like all of those kinds of levels of assistance, um, like Mozambique as well, like all of those levels of like actual material, like on the line, putting their bodies on the line to fight for a mutual kind of independence towards African sovereignty. And so the historical record on the one hand, but then um, it also, I think, denies um, the expansiveness of Blackness, but also Blackness is a political project. And so, yeah, there's so much of that bound in it, and also understanding that, okay, and you were talking about, I think, a level of kind of purity
mm.
also that I think I see in like certain kinds of like leftist formations who we don't see out, like, struggling for or with Venezuela or the Nicaraguas, or and part of that is like we as African people have interests in the world. And if we are taking the long view of our liberation, then those interests will be in turn strategic. And so, you know, even if you're not a person who's like doing it because, like, we're all in it together, I buy that. Um, I'll take that argument. That's but is it better off in the world for Africans if this country fails?
Hmm.
If these people don't achieve their liberation? And I think when I begin to answer that question, it's a very kind of easy answer. That we are all like the system is so kind of interconnected and sophisticated, and they're all cooperating. How else do you think you're going to get any level of free if you're not doing it? You're gonna hold your little corner over there. Uh, you're gonna hold, and they're gonna hold that little corner. That's folly.
But then the corner that so many of us are trying to hold, we don't own it. It's not
That
what
part.
you hold. What you think you? Okay, let me stop because I'm gonna get in trouble if I keep going. Okay. I don't. What are you hitching your wagon to? Like we own nothing. We The house that this studio is in, yeah, I have a deed to it. Okay, my name is on the deed. And you think they don't have a way to take everything from me, deed or not? I understand that this is not my land. I don't own any of this. Eminent domain has stolen more from our people in the past 30, 50 years. Is that something that people don't understand? You think just because you have a deed to an edifice on some land that means that is yours? The bank still owns it as long as you are paying a mortgage. And even after you pay that mortgage off, the government can come and take it if they feel like it using eminent domain. So what do you own when you live in a society in which the government at every level can enact laws without your input or consent that undercut whatever alleged rights you were supposed to have? And then those same politicians demand that you vote for them and they promise you nothing. You have no input into the legislative process. They don't talk to you and ask you what you want from them, except for when they're telling you you have to vote for them every 4 years. And then you feel like, well, I guess I got to vote for them because otherwise it's going to be that other guy. It's going to be the racist. As if the black person who hates black people, but especially hates poor black people, because you know, if you think Barack Obama and Kamala Harris like you because they are also black, please remember that it was Barack Obama who wagged his finger at black folks while he was campaigning. But then when he got in front of white audiences, he talked about policy. But when he got in front of working class and poor black folks in New Jersey, oh, I remember that one, because I didn't even know Abdus was in the crowd when he made and he is telling these people, nobody owes you anything, be responsible. Fathers, don't stop having children out of wedlock. This was when he was campaigning, but he gets in front of white people too. And this man is talking about health care. And that wasn't a clue to you that Obama hates your poor black ass? I don't understand. It wasn't a clue to you that he hates Africans after he had the U.S. military sodomize and assassinate Muammar Gaddafi and destroy the most prosperous and progressive African country ever? since the anti-colonial struggles? And you didn't understand? So you didn't understand that Kamala Harris hates black folks, and she hates poor black folks in particular, when her idea for policies for black men was, what was that thing? Conversations about health screenings for colon cancer, you know, the diseases that take out a lot of our brothers because y'all won't go to the damn doctor unless your mama or your woman tells you to. But for other folks, it was apprenticeship programs. Oh, y'all didn't check out her little, when she had the campaign website and there were no policy platforms on it, and then everybody said, ain't no policy platforms on it, what the hell is she gonna do? And then she created some bullshit policies for black folks. And those policies were, yeah, oh, that's right. Thank you, 2Fs. Weed decriminalization, because yeah, all black men need weed. All y'all are on weed. That's what it is. And it's the weed that all y'all black men are smoking that's giving you colon cancer. Maybe we'll do a study about that. But for other folks, it was, you know, apprenticeship programs to increase the presence of non-white men in certain professions. They hate you. I don't care if they are black. They hate you.
They show it all the time.
They do not like black folks. They hate poor black people in particular. The only black people they like are the ones who went to the same schools that they went to, who have the same credentials they do, who have the same politics they do. They only like black imperialists. And if you think these black folks in these positions of power are at odds with the black folks in the GOP, I mean the liberals, the so-called black liberals, if you think they are at odds with the black folks in the GOP, oh Lord, I'm so sorry to bust your bubble, but they're friends, y'all. They're all friends. Y'all see how this whole government shutdown thing? Where was the Congressional Black Caucus? Where they at? Where they at? They didn't vote for the shutdown deal, but they sure haven't been making a whole lot of noise. And then we look at the Democratic Party that has all of the emails. Y'all are going on and on and on about these damn emails. I don't know what else you need to see. I honestly don't. Why do you need all of the emails to know that this man is a filthy, disgusting pedophile who has done some other things that I can't even, because that just really, I really feel bad for my queer and trans comrades, because y'all do not deserve to be associated with anything that man does. I am sorry. That's not even a joke. Like the fact that he may have done things with Bill Clinton. Come on.
Wait, what? Wait,
Oh, you didn't know?
oh, wait. I was like, where's this going? I don't know what's
You
going
didn't know? Oh my God. Yeah, so
on.
apparently in one of the emails
I'm out the
that
loop.
no, I'm serious. And I wish I didn't know this. I am so sorry. Dear God. But apparently, if you see a bunch of jokes, a bunch of homoerotic kind of jokes on social media about Trump and Bill Clinton, it is because this latest cache of emails that the Democrats just conveniently released after they colluded with Trump to reopen the government. They have all of the documents. They have everything. They should have just released everything, but no. Oh, folks are like, oh, they're following the rule. They're not following any rules. They are colluding with this man. They don't oppose what he's doing. They just don't like the way he's doing it. But yeah, so allegedly, Epstein writes in one of these emails that Donald Trump committed an act that we had previously discussed involving Bill Clinton, that he said wasn't a sex act when the same thing was done to him by Monica Lewinsky. Don't make me say anything else.
Oh,
Don't
they
make
was
me
giving
say
PJ. Giving PJ. That's 69. Wait, what? Oh, freaking.
I didn't understand what was happening when I was looking on social media earlier. And I'm like, come on, do we have to keep up with the because I had enough of the homoerotic jokes about Trump and Putin. I was like, come on now, we don't have to go there. That's not. But then I saw this today. I was like, oh no, come on. Can we? Our queer and trans people, our queer and trans friends, our queer and trans comrades don't deserve to be smeared by anything these people do. Just stop making jokes about that shit. Don't it is. I mean, it shouldn't be outside of the realm of what you think of that man, because this is a person who has no morals. But look, y'all, I'm here to tell you, as freaky as y'all have a lot of judgment for other folks, other working class and poor folks, y'all ain't seen freaky till y'all seen rich people behind they closed doors. Y'all ain't seen shit. Y'all don't know what freaky is.
Yeah, you really don't. You really don't.
You do not. Yeah, and you don't want to know.
Yeah, the levels.
You don't want to know. Yeah, there's a story I can't tell. But it was the one time I left a great party and like I don't think I can be right with God for any of this. And I had to took my last drink.
Was the eyes wide shut? What are we talking about?
It was so close to it. It was like, okay, this is not my kind of party. I was just thinking hors d'oeuvres and nice drinks. This, nope. So yeah, look, whatever you think, this government and the people who prop it up they're all worse. They're all worse. The worst thing you could possibly think of these people doing, I guarantee you, they've done much worse. I mean, we've seen the much worse they've done. You don't get worse than genocide. You understand?
And you on it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get worse. And we're not even talking about, people in their personal, proclivities or whatever. That's your personal business. You do you, but when there is nothing more depraved than what this government has done to the people of the Americas, to the people of the global South, to the people of the world. There's nothing So people are focused on, oh, release the Epstein files. What else do you need to know about this man and the US government to understand that there is no depravity that is lower than what this government has already carried out against countries like Venezuela and Cuba and Nicaragua, and what they really want to do to China, but they really do not want to fuck around and find out about that. Because if y'all think those drones are just for pretty light shows in China, keep thinking that.
Right.
I mean, that's what they use them for.
Right.
That's a use.
Yeah.
Because they love their light show. They do. I swear, I ain't never seen nothing like it. And they all outside at night too. But if you think, okay. But anyway, Carlos, thanks so much for coming on and having the serious conversation about the week of action in defense of Venezuela, and sticking around for the overtime, the dark room, as I call it, where I cuss and everybody loves it. We all let off some steam, but I'm sorry for that last bit of steam, y'all. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you didn't know. And dear God, now I need to go wash my eyes out with alcohol. Okay.
I did. No, I appreciate being on. Yeah, thanks for having us on. And yeah, this was great.
Cool. So this is what we're going to be doing every once in a while as things heat up. Obviously, I'll still be here in some kind of configuration. Who knows? WPFW's trying to stay on the air because they're trying to kick them off the air.
Oh, sure.
I'm with Black Liberation Media's trying to keep from getting completely banned. And we're all out here trying to survive and trying to fight. So that's what we have to keep doing, regardless of what they throw at us. What we can never do is give up. We can never give up, because if we give up, we absolutely will not win. Absolutely. It is guaranteed that we will lose if we don't fight. But if we fight, we have a chance. And I think at this point, we've got better than a chance. So thanks so much, y'all. Appreciate y'all. I will see y'all soon. Peace. Now I can never find the damn thing. There we go. Okay.
You too.